At 55 years old, Abigail Brown never imagined she would become the obsession of the most feared mafia boss in Chicago. Especially not after being hired for one reason only: because she was considered too old to tempt him. Rain poured from the black midnight sky as Abigail stepped out of the taxi and stared up at the West Mansion, a towering fortress of glass, marble, and secrets perched dangerously close to the cliffs overlooking the city. Lightning illuminated the estate for half a second, revealing iron gates, armed guards, and windows glowing like watchful eyes in the storm. The driver refused to wait. "People disappear here," he muttered before speeding away. Abigail simply adjusted her coat and walked toward the mansion doors. Inside, servants watched her with open curiosity. This was the fourth maid hired in 6 months. The others had been young, beautiful, nervous women who barely lasted weeks before quitting in tears. Anthony West, the ruthless head of the West criminal empire, never touched them, never flirted, never even looked at them longer than necessary. But his coldness was worse. The mansion suffocated people. So this time, his security team had chosen differently. Older, professional, invisible. Safe. Or at least, that's what they thought when Abigail Brown arrived. Because the moment Anthony West looked into her calm brown eyes, something inside the feared mafia boss shifted for the very first time in years. And obsession is far more dangerous than temptation. What would you do if the most feared mafia boss in the city suddenly became obsessed with you? Run or stay and risk your heart? Tell me below. Kindly subscribe to Timeless Mafia Romance so you get notified whenever we post a new story. Abigail began her work at dawn. The mansion woke slowly, light creeping through windows to illuminate rooms larger than most people's homes. She moved through the space with practiced efficiency, cleaning surfaces that were already pristine, organizing objects that existed more for display than use. Luxury, she'd learned long ago, was often just another word for loneliness. The other staff avoided her, not with hostility, but with the wary distance people show toward anything unfamiliar. She was different, older, calmer, unbothered by the oppressive atmosphere that made younger employees jump at shadows. Maria, the cook, was the first to speak to her beyond basic instructions. "You're not afraid of him?" she asked one morning, watching Abigail prepare Mr. West's coffee with meticulous care. "Should I be? Everyone else is." Abigail poured the coffee into fine china. "Fear is exhausting. I'm too old to waste energy on it." Maria laughed, but nervously. "He's not like other men. He's cold, dangerous. There are rumors." "There are always rumors about powerful men." Abigail lifted the tray. "Most of the time, what people call dangerous is just deeply wounded." She left before Maria could respond. Anthony's office was on the west wing, isolated from the rest of the house. Abigail knocked once, a soft, respectful sound, and entered when he grunted acknowledgement. He was already working, surrounded by papers and screens, his attention focused with laser precision. He didn't look up as she placed the coffee on his desk. Most maids would have hurried out. Abigail paused. "You didn't sleep." His eyes snapped to her, sharp and cold. "Excuse me. The coffee from last night is still half full and cold. Your jacket is on the same chair. You've been working all night." Silence stretched between them, dangerous, assessing. "That's none of your concern," he said quietly. "You're right, my apologies." She turned to leave. "Mrs. Brown." She stopped but didn't turn around. "How did you know?" His voice carried genuine curiosity beneath the ice. "I raised 2 children, Mr. West. I learned to notice the small things." She glanced back, her expression soft. "The body keeps score, even when we try to ignore it." She left before he could respond. Anthony stared at the closed door, his coffee forgotten. No one spoke to him like that. No one observed him. No one dared to suggest he was anything less than completely in control. But she hadn't been insolent. She'd been concerned. It unsettled him more than any threat ever had. Days turned to weeks, and Abigail became part of the mansion's rhythm. She was indeed invisible, moving through spaces with quiet efficiency, never intruding, never demanding attention. But unlike the others, her invisibility felt like a choice rather than fear. She could have been noticed if she wanted. She simply chose discretion. Anthony found himself noticing anyway. The way she hummed softly while arranging flowers in the entrance hall. The way she paused at windows during rain, her expression distant but peaceful. The way she treated every task, no matter how small, with genuine care. She wasn't trying to impress him. That was what disturbed him most. Late one evening, after a particularly brutal meeting with the Calabrese family representatives, a meeting that had ended with veiled threats and promises of violence, Anthony returned to his office with blood on his knuckles and murder in his eyes. His men knew better than to follow. Marco stationed guards outside and left him alone. Anthony poured whiskey with shaking hands, hatting the tremor, hatting the rage that burned beneath his skin like acid. He'd killed men for less than what Calabrese had said tonight. He'd burned entire operations to the ground for smaller insults. But the war would come. It always did. A soft knock interrupted his spiral. "Get out," he snarled. The door opened anyway. Abigail stepped inside, carrying a first aid kit. She closed the door behind her with calm finality. "I said get out." "I heard you," she approached without fear, setting the kit on his desk. "Your knuckles are bleeding." "It's not my blood." "Some of it is." She opened the kit, her movements unhurried. "May I?" He should have refused, should have thrown her out, should have reminded her that he was dangerous, that men feared him, that she was crossing a line that could get her killed. Instead, he held out his hand. Abigail's touch was gentle as she cleaned the blood away with antiseptic wipes. Her hands were warm, steady, marked with the evidence of a life fully lived, thin scars, calluses from work, skin that had known both tenderness and hardship. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "I know." "Then why?" She met his eyes, and for the first time, Anthony saw something in her gaze that terrified him more than any weapon. Compassion. "Because someone should," she said simply. "Because behind all the power and fear you're still human, and humans bleed." His jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you work 18-hour days. I know you sleep maybe 4 hours a night. I know you take your coffee black because you've trained yourself not to enjoy sweet things. I know you avoid the East Wing because someone important used to live there." She rapped his knuckles with practiced precision. "I know you're lonely, Mr. West. So lonely it's killing you from the inside." Anthony pulled his hand back sharply. "You're overstepping." "I apologize." She closed the kit, unruffled by his anger. "But it doesn't make it less true." She left, and the silence she left behind felt heavier than any threat Anthony had received that night. He looked at his bandaged hand, at the care she'd taken with something as simple as cleaning wounds. When had anyone last touched him with kindness? When had anyone last seen him as more than a monster? He drank his whiskey and admitted a truth that terrified him. He couldn't remember. Anthony started watching her. Not intentionally at first, just noticing patterns. The way she took her lunch alone in the garden, reading worn paperback books. The way she spoke to the younger staff with maternal warmth, teaching them small kindnesses without making them feel inadequate. The way she existed in his world without being consumed by it. She was an anomaly, a puzzle he couldn't solve. One afternoon, he found her in the library, a room he rarely used, filled with books purchased for appearance rather than passion. She was on a ladder, dusting shelves, completely absorbed in a volume she'd pulled down. "Dostoevsky," he observed from the doorway. She didn't startle. "Mr. West, I didn't hear you come in." "You were absorbed." He stepped closer. "Do you read Russian literature often?" "When I can." She climbed down the ladder with easy grace. "I raised my children on stories. These days, books are my best companions." "Your children." Something flickered in her eyes, pain carefully contained. "Grown now, living their own lives as they should." "You don't see them." Not as much as I'd like. She replaced the book carefully. But I'm proud of them. My daughter is a doctor. My son teaches literature. They built good lives. And you. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I survived. That's its own accomplishment. Anthony found himself wanting to know more. What happened to your husband? Mr. West. It's just a question. Abigail studied him for a long moment. He left when our son was 12, found a younger woman, a different life. I raised them alone after that, worked 3 jobs to put them through school. She met his gaze steadily. I learned that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up every single time. Something in her words struck deep. Finding cracks in armor Anthony had spent years fortifying. You don't sound bitter, he said quietly. Bitterness is a poison you drink yourself. She picked up her cleaning supplies. He made his choice. I made mine. And my children became extraordinary people because of the struggle, not despite it. She left him standing in the library, surrounded by unread books and uncomfortable emotions. That night, Anthony opened the Dostoevsky she'd been reading. He read until dawn. The shift happened gradually, like seasons changing. Anthony began finding excuses to be where Abigail worked, reviewing documents in rooms she cleaned, taking coffee in the garden when she read during breaks, asking questions about books, about life, about everything except the criminal empire that funded this gilded cage. With her, he could almost forget who he was. With her, he could almost remember who he'd wanted to be. Abigail never pushed, never pried. She simply existed with that infuriating calmness, treating him like a human being rather than a god or monster. It was intoxicating. Late one evening, after another brutal day of negotiations and threats, Anthony found her in the kitchen long after the other staff had left. She was preparing tea, her movements slow and meditative. You're still awake, she observed. So are you. Insomnia, an old companion. She poured a second cup without asking. Chamomile, it helps sometimes. He shouldn't stay, shouldn't blur these lines, shouldn't want the comfort of her presence like oxygen. He sat down anyway. They drank tea in comfortable silence, rain drumming against the windows. The kitchen felt intimate, almost normal, far removed from the violence and power that defined his days. Can I ask you something? Abigail's voice was soft. You don't have to answer. Go ahead. Why did you choose this life? Most people wouldn't dare, but she asked with genuine curiosity, not judgment. Anthony stared into his tea. I didn't choose it. I inherited it. My father built this empire. I was trained from childhood to be ruthless, strategic, untouchable. And when he died, I became the thing he created. Do you regret it? Every day. The admission surprised him. He'd never said it aloud. But regret doesn't matter. This is who I am. This is all I know. Abigail's eyes held infinite sadness. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Why? Because you're 36 years old, and you've already decided your story is finished. You've surrendered to inevitability instead of possibility. You think people like me can change? His laugh was bitter. I've done things that would horrify you, hurt people, destroyed lives. There's no redemption for men like me. I think, she said carefully, that you've convinced yourself you don't deserve kindness, and that belief has become your prison. The words hit like bullets, precision strikes against defenses he didn't know were crumbling. You should go, he said roughly. It's late. Abigail stood but paused at the door. Mr. West, for what it's worth, I don't think you're beyond saving. I think you're just beyond hopping. She left him alone, with words that would haunt him for weeks. Something changed after that night. Anthony became aware of every moment Abigail spent with others. When Marco laughed at something she said, Anthony's jaw tightened. When the young gardener, Paulo, sought her advice about his sick mother, Anthony felt irrational anger burn through him. She wasn't his. She was an employee, a maid for God's sake. But rationality had nothing to do with the possessiveness clawing at his chest. The breaking point came during a dinner party. A necessary evil where Anthony entertained associates, played the gracious host, and negotiated deals over expensive wine. Abigail was serving, moving through the room with her characteristic grace. One of his guests, Viktor Petrov, a Russian arms dealer with a reputation for cruelty, watched her with undisguised interest. "Beautiful woman," Viktor commented to Anthony. "Where did you find her?" Anthony's hand tightened around his glass. "She's staff." "Still, there's something about her. Class, dignity." Victor's smile was predatory. "Perhaps when you're finished with her." "She's not available." Anthony's voice could have frozen fire. Victor raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course, I meant no disrespect." But the damage was done. For the rest of the evening, Anthony watched Victor watch Abigail, and rage unlike anything he'd felt in years consumed him. After the guests left, he found her cleaning the dining room. "Did Petrov speak to you?" His voice was harsh, barely controlled. Abigail looked up, surprised by his tone. "Briefly, he asked for more wine." "That's all." "Yes, why?" "Because he's dangerous. Because men like him see everything as something to possess." "Mr. West, I've dealt with difficult men before." "Not like him, not like us." He stepped closer, and Abigail's eyes widened at the intensity radiating from him. "Stay away from him. If he contacts you, if he approaches you, you tell me immediately." "Are you," she searched his face, "are you worried about me?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to acknowledge. "You work for me," Anthony said roughly. "That makes you my responsibility." "I see." Something flickered in her eyes, disappointment maybe. She returned to cleaning. "I'll be careful, Mr. West." He left, but the jealousy didn't fade. It grew, feeding on every interaction, every smile she gave someone else, every moment she existed beyond his control. Anthony West, who commanded empires and inspired fear in hardened criminals, was losing control over something far more dangerous than territory or power. He was losing control over his own heart. "If you've come this far, we truly appreciate you for staying with the story. Now tell me, why do you think Anthony can't stop thinking about Abigail? Is it love, loneliness, obsession, or something far more dangerous?" The attack came without warning. 3 rival families had united against Anthony, seeing weakness in his recent distraction. They struck at his warehouses, his operations, his men. It was coordinated, brutal, and designed to send a message. Nobody challenges Anthony West without consequences. The retaliation was swift and merciless. Anthony spent 72 hours orchestrating a war, moving pieces on a bloody chessboard, reminding the underworld why he was feared. He returned to the mansion at dawn on the 3rd day, covered in blood and hollow-eyed with exhaustion. The staff scattered at his approach. Even Marco kept his distance. Only Abigail stood her ground. She was in the entrance hall, arranging fresh flowers, a small act of normalcy in a house that reeked of death. When she saw him, something in her expression cracked. "Mr. West." "Not now." He moved past her toward his office. "Anthony." He stopped. She'd never used his first name. "You need to rest," she said softly. "You're going to collapse." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're barely standing." She approached carefully, the way one might approach a wounded animal. "Please, let me help." His control shattered. "Help," his laugh was ugly. "You want to help, you can't help. No one can. This is what I am, Abigail. This is what I do. I hurt people. I destroy things. I'm not some project you can fix with kindness and tea." She didn't flinch. "I never said you were." "Then what do you want from me?" The question tore out of him, raw and desperate. "Why do you look at me like I'm human when we both know I'm not? Why do you stay when everyone else runs? Why?" His voice broke. "Why do you care?" Abigail's eyes glistened. "Because someone needs to. Because beneath all the violence and fear, I see a man who's drowning, and I know what that feels like." He stared at her, this woman who should have been invisible, who should have meant nothing, who had somehow become the only real thing in his artificial world. I'm dangerous, he whispered. I know. I'm broken. So am I. If you stay close to me, you'll get hurt. Everyone does. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, close enough that her calm presence wrapped around him like a lifeline. Then hurt me, she said quietly, but stop pretending you don't feel anything. Stop pretending you're the monster they believe you to be. Because I see you, Anthony, all of you, and I'm still here. He broke. Years of control, of discipline, of enforced coldness, all of it shattered. He pulled her against him with desperate force, burying his face in her hair, breathing in the simple comfort of her presence. Abigail's arms came around him, steady and strong, holding him while he trembled with exhaustion and emotions he'd suppressed for decades. I've got you, she murmured. I've got you. And in that moment, the most feared man in the criminal underworld admitted a terrifying truth. He needed her. More than power, more than control, more than anything. Everything changed after that morning. Anthony tried to pull back, to rebuild the walls that Abigail had demolished with nothing more than compassion and steady presence. But it was impossible. She'd seen him vulnerable, broken, human, and she hadn't run. That knowledge was more intoxicating than any drug. He found excuses to be near her, asking her to serve lunch in his office, requesting her presence during late-night work sessions, seeking her out in quiet moments when the mansion felt too empty and his thoughts too dark. The staff noticed. Whispers followed them through corridors. Even Marco looked concerned. "Boss," he said carefully one evening, "people are talking." "Let them talk. She's not like the others. She's not some temporary distraction." Anthony's eyes went cold. "What exactly are you suggesting, Marco?" "I'm suggesting you think carefully. Your enemies will see any attachment as weakness, and they'll exploit it. I can protect what's mine." "Can you?" Marco held his gaze. "Because the last time you cared about someone, it destroyed you." The memory hit like a bullet. Sophia, young and beautiful and treacherous, who'd used his love as a weapon, who'd nearly brought down everything he'd built. The betrayal that had taught him to never trust, never feel, never love. "Abigail is different," Anthony said quietly. "Maybe, but you said that before." After Marco left, Anthony sat in the darkness of his office, staring at the city lights below. His advisor was right. Caring was dangerous. Attachment was vulnerability. But when Abigail knocked softly and entered with chamomile tea, when she sat across from him with that calm strength, when she asked about his day and actually listened to the answer, he didn't care about the danger. For the first time in 15 years, something mattered more than survival. The shift became undeniable one rain-soaked evening. Anthony had dismissed the staff early, craving solitude after a particularly brutal negotiation. But solitude felt different now, less like peace and more like emptiness. He found Abigail in the library, curled in his favorite chair, reading by lamplight. She looked up when he entered, surprise and something else crossing her face. "Mr. West, I thought you dismissed everyone." "I did, stay." It wasn't a request, but it wasn't a command either. It was something closer to pleading. Abigail closed her book. "Are you all right?" "No," he poured whiskey with steady hands, "but I haven't been all right for a very long time." "What happened today?" "I authorized something unforgivable." He drank, the burn welcome. "A man had to disappear. He had family, children, and I gave the order without hesitation because that's what my world demands." Most people would have recoiled. Abigail just listened. "And now I'm standing here," he continued, voice rough, "wondering when I stopped being human, when I became the thing my father created, when the violence stopped bothering me." "It bothers you now," Abigail observed softly. "Because of you?" He turned to face her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. "You make me remember what I gave up, what I sacrificed to survive in this world. You make me want things I stopped believing were possible." Abigail stood slowly, her heart hammering. "Anthony, I know all the reasons this is wrong. I know you're older than the women I'm supposed to want. I know you work for me. I know I'm dangerous and damaged and completely wrong for you." He stepped closer. "But I can't stop thinking about you. I can't focus. I can't breathe without wondering where you are, if you're safe, if you're thinking about me even a fraction as much as I think about you." Tears slipped down Abigail's cheeks. "You hired me to be invisible. And instead, you became the only thing I see." The air between them crackled with tension. Dangerous, electric, inevitable. "I'm 55 years old," Abigail whispered. "I'm not young, I'm not." "You're extraordinary." His voice was fierce. "You're strong and kind and real in a world of pretenders. You see me, not the power, not the fear, not the monster everyone else sees, just me. Do you understand how rare that is? How precious?" "This can't work," but her voice shook. "Your world, my life, everything." "I don't care." "You should. Your enemies will use this. Use me." "Then I'll destroy them." He cupped her face with scarred hands. "I'll burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. I'll raise entire families. I'll start a war if necessary, because losing you is not an option I'll accept." "Anthony," she breathed, "this is madness." "Then let me be mad." His forehead touched hers. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm alone in this obsession and I'll never mention it again. I'll let you go, but look me in the eye and tell me the truth." Abigail closed her eyes, tears streaming. When she opened them, the truth was written in their depths. "I can't," she whispered. "God help me, I can't." His kiss was inevitable, desperate and gentle all at once, tasting of whiskey and longing. She responded with equal hunger, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. Years of loneliness, pain, and carefully constructed distance shattered between them. When they finally broke apart, both were shaking. "This changes everything," Abigail whispered. "I know." His thumb traced her cheek. "But I stopped caring about consequences the moment I realized I was falling in love with you." The words hung in the air, dangerous, beautiful, irrevocable. "Say that again," she breathed. "I love you, Abigail Brown, not despite your age, not despite anything. I love your strength, your compassion, your courage. I love the way you see the world. I love the way you see me." His voice cracked. "I love you with everything I have left that's still capable of feeling." Abigail's sob was joy and terror mixed. "I love you too, and that terrifies me." "Why?" "Because love has hurt me before. Because I've learned to survive without it. Because losing you would destroy me." Anthony pulled her close, fierce and protective. "Then we won't lose each other. Whatever it takes, whatever the cost, we fight for this." And in that library, surrounded by unread books and the storm raging outside, two broken people found something neither believed existed. Hope. Do you think Abigail is changing the Mafia boss for the better, or is she slowly becoming trapped in his dark world? Drop your theory below because things are about to explode. Loving Anthony West was like loving a storm. Beautiful, terrifying, capable of both destruction and renewal. Abigail learned the reality quickly. The late-night phone calls that pulled him away, the meetings he couldn't discuss, the danger that lurked at the edges of every moment. But she also saw the man beneath the monster. The way his eyes softened when she entered a room, the careful way he touched her, as if afraid she'd disappear, the vulnerability he showed only to her. They stole moments when they could, early mornings in the garden, late nights in his office, brief touches that spoke volumes. To the outside world, she remained the housekeeper. Behind closed doors, she was his salvation. But secrets in the underworld never stayed secret long. Viktor Petrov returned, ostensibly to discuss business, but his eyes tracked Abigail with knowing amusement. "Your housekeeper," he commented to Anthony over drinks. "She seems important." Anthony's expression remained neutral, but his blood turned cold. "She's efficient." "More than that, I think." Victor's smile was cruel. "A man doesn't look at staff the way you look at her unless there's something deeper." "You're mistaken." "Am I?" Victor leaned back, completely at ease. "It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all have weaknesses, though I must say she's an unusual choice for a man of your appetites." Every instinct screamed at Anthony to end this man. But Victor was powerful, connected. Killing him would start a war Anthony couldn't afford right now. Careful, Victor. I mean no offense, just an observation. He finished his drink. Though you should know others have noticed too, and in our world anything loved can be leveraged. After Victor left, Anthony found Abigail in the kitchen. Pack a bag, he said tersely. What? You're leaving. Tonight. Marco will arrange protection, a new identity, money. Anthony, what happened? They know. His hands shook with controlled fury. They know what you mean to me, and now you're a target, so you have to disappear. It's the only way to keep you safe. Abigail's face went pale. You're sending me away. To protect you. By ripping us apart, her voice broke. By making me run. If staying means you die, yes. He gripped her shoulders. I can't lose you. Don't you understand? I'd rather spend the rest of my life knowing you're alive somewhere, hatting me, than have you here and in danger. Tears streamed down her face. And what about what I want? What you want doesn't matter if you're dead. So I get no choice. You just decide my fate. Yes, because I love you too much to watch them destroy you. The truth hung between them. Love and control impossibly tangled. Abigail wiped her tears, her expression hardening with resolve. No. Abigail. No, Anthony. I've spent my whole life being told what I could and couldn't have. My husband decided I wasn't enough. My poverty decided where I could work. Society decided I was invisible. She stepped close, fierce despite her tears. I won't let you decide my fate too, not even out of love. They'll kill you. Then I die, but I die on my terms with my choices, loving the man I choose to love. Her hands cupped his face. I'm not running. If you want me gone, you'll have to physically remove me, and even then I'll find my way back. Anthony's control shattered. He crushed her against him, his body shaking. I can't lose you. Then don't push me away. She held him tight. We face this together or not at all. In that moment, Anthony realized something profound. She wasn't his weakness. She was his strength. The attack came 3 days later. Anthony was in the city handling business that couldn't be delayed. Abigail was home, reading in the garden, enjoying rare afternoon sunshine. She didn't see the men until they were already through the gates. 4 of them, armed, moving with military precision. The guards at the perimeter had been neutralized. The mansion's security breached. Abigail ran. Years of survival instinct kicked in. She fled toward the house, but they cut off her escape. Hands grabbed her. She fought harder than they expected, landing hits that surprised men accustomed to easy prey. But 4 against 1 was impossible odds. They dragged her toward the gate, just as gunfire erupted. Marco and his team had realized the breach. The shootout was swift and brutal. 2 attackers fell. The other 2 used Abigail as a shield, retreating toward waiting vehicles. One held a gun to her head. Back off, he screamed at Marco's men. Back off or she dies. And that's when Anthony's car screeched into the driveway. He emerged like vengeance incarnate, his expression absolutely empty, the coldness that made hardened criminals piss themselves. He walked toward the attackers with measured steps, unarmed, completely calm. Let her go, he said quietly. Stay back, West. I'll kill her. You're already dead. Anthony's voice held no anger, no heat, just cold certainty. You touched something that belongs to me. Your life ended the moment you decided that was acceptable. I said stay. The gunshot interrupted him. The attacker holding Abigail collapsed, a perfect shot through his temple from one of Marco's snipers. The 4th man tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Anthony was on him. What happened next, Abigail would try to forget. The methodical, terrifying way Anthony dismantled the man with bare hands. No rage, no loss of control. Just cold, calculating violence executed with surgical precision. When it was over, Anthony walked to Abigail through the blood, his hands shaking, his eyes wild. Are you hurt? His voice cracked. Did they hurt you? I'm okay. She was trembling, shocked but unharmed. He pulled her into his arms, his control finally breaking. "I almost lost you. I almost. I'm here, I'm here." But later, after the police had been paid off, after the bodies were removed, after normalcy had been forcibly restored, Anthony stood in his office and faced the truth. Loving her put her in danger. And he had to choose, his heart or her life. Abigail found him on the balcony at midnight, staring at the city below. "You're going to send me away," she said quietly, not a question. "Yes." "Anthony, I can't protect you." He didn't turn around. Today proved that. No matter how much security, how many men, how careful we are, someone will always try to use you against me. "So your solution is to lose me by choice, rather than by force." "My solution is to keep you alive." Abigail moved beside him, studying his profile. "You're afraid." Terrified, the admission was raw. "I've faced death 1,000 times without flinching, but watching that gun to your head, knowing I might lose you," his voice broke. "I can't survive that, Abigail." "You think I can survive losing you?" She turned him to face her. "You think I want safety without you, security without love, existence without meaning?" "I want you to live. I want to live fully." Her eyes blazed. "Yes, today was terrifying. Yes, loving you is dangerous. But do you know what was more terrifying? All those years of being invisible, being safe and comfortable and completely, utterly alone." "Abigail, when my husband left, I thought I was broken. When I raised my children alone, I thought survival was enough. When they grew up and left, I thought my purpose was finished." Tears streamed down her face. "But then I met you, and you made me feel alive again, seen, important, loved. And I almost got you killed. You saved my life." She gripped his shirt. "Those men came for me and you stopped them. You protected me. That's not weakness, Anthony. That's love." He closed his eyes, warring with himself. "I don't know how to do this, how to love you and keep you safe, how to be what I am and deserve what you are." "You don't have to have all the answers." Her hand cupped his cheek. "You just have to choose fear and lose everything, or choose love and fight for it." The silence stretched, heavy with the weight of the decision. Finally, Anthony opened his eyes. "If you stay, it won't be easy. There will always be danger, always threats. I'll have enemies who will use you against me." "I know. I'll be possessive, probably insufferably overprotective. I'll want to wrap you in security and never let you out of my sight. I can handle that. I'm damaged, Abigail, broken in ways that might never fully heal." She smiled through tears. "Good, so am I. We can be broken together." He pulled her close, fierce and desperate. "God help me, I can't let you go." "Then don't." She kissed him softly. "Choose us, choose love, choose to believe we're worth fighting for." And in that moment, Anthony West made a choice that would define the rest of his life. He chose her. 6 months later, the mansion felt different. It was still luxurious, still powerful, still touched by the darkness of Anthony's world. But light had crept in through cracks Abigail had created. Fresh flowers in every room, books on every surface, laughter echoing through corridors that had known only silence. Abigail no longer wore a housekeeper's uniform. She moved through the house as what she truly was, the heart of it. The staff adored her. Anthony's men respected her. Even his enemies had learned she was untouchable, protected by the full weight of Anthony's terrifying love. The danger hadn't disappeared. It never would, but they'd learned to navigate it together. Anthony had restructured his organization, delegating more, pulling back from the most violent aspects of his empire. He couldn't escape his world completely, but he could choose how deeply it defined him. And every night, he came home to Abigail. "You're thinking too hard," she observed one evening, finding him on their balcony. Their balcony now, not just his. "Just remembering." "Remembering what?" He pulled her against him, his chin resting on her silver-streaked hair. "The night you arrived, thunder and lightning, I thought hearing an older housekeeper would solve my problems. No temptation, no complications." Abigail laughed. "How did that work out for you?" You destroyed me. His arms tightened. You dismantled every defense I'd built, made me feel things I'd sworn never to feel again, became so essential I can't imagine breathing without you. She turned in his arms, her eyes luminous. Regrets. Only that I didn't find you sooner. He kissed her softly. You saved me, Abigail, from myself, from the darkness, from a life that wasn't really living. We saved each other, she corrected gently. I was invisible before you. Now I'm seen, loved, home. Always, he promised. For the rest of my life you'll be seen, protected, cherished. She smiled. The Mafia boss and his older housekeeper were quite the scandal. Let them talk. His grin was wolfish. I'm the most feared man in the city. They can gossip all they want. No one's brave enough to say it to my face. They stood together as stars emerged above the city, two damaged souls who'd found healing in the most unlikely place. Age, power, danger, society's expectations, none of it mattered anymore. All that mattered was this. Love found them when neither was looking for it, and once found, they'd fought for it with everything they had. In the criminal underworld, Anthony West remained a force of nature, calculating, dangerous, feared. But in the sanctuary of their home, in the safe haven of Abigail's arms, he was simply a man who'd learned that the greatest strength wasn't control or power or fear. It was allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to love, to be loved in return. The housekeeper he'd hired to be invisible had become his entire world. And he'd never let her go. Love doesn't make you weak. It reminds you what you're fighting for. If this story made your heart race, don't leave silently. Comment your favorite moment, like the video, and subscribe for more unforgettable Mafia romance stories filled with obsession, danger, passion, and emotional twists. Your support truly keeps these stories alive.